Hello and welcome to the Championship Talk podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Toole, and joined virtually opposite me, somewhere, is my co-host Thomas Falco.
Hello.
So we're going to start with the news, and we've kind of got three key news articles we're going to talk about, and they're all very, very sort of interwoven. They're all very sensitive. I think the first place we're going to start is we're going to highlight this one club because they've been the most publicised club, but it did happen at other grounds. So we've got fans back in the stadium, which is good, and that should be the one thing we're talking about, and how great it was to have fans in the stadium. Second round of fixtures in, players take a knee, and fans start booing. I kind of don't. We were both talking off air that this is a very deep subject. We've had discussions before around racism and how abhorrent we think it is. Unfortunately, it is a part of society. It only takes a few loud voices to drown out the rest of the crowd of 1950 odd people. It doesn't take a lot of voices. What were your thoughts when you heard this, Thomas?
It's disappointing it's happened at any ground, isn't it? And as you've said, it's happened at more than one ground over the weekend as well. So we're not just highlighting one club and saying that it is just happening there. It is very, very disappointing. I mean, it is a gesture that is meant to affect change, and I'm pretty sure it has in certain aspects. But the fact it's even the tiny minority even of people are booing means that we still have an issue within football in general and society in general as well. And in this day and age, in 2020, it just seems wrong and disgusting to me that it is still, racism is an issue still. It shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. And I'm lost for words beyond this. I've talked off air. This is going to be hard for me to talk about coherently. I can't get the words out now, but it's just wrong, but it's happening, full stop.
I think the obviously the team that have been highlighted the most is Millwall, and we're not going to go into too much detail. We don't want to be seen that we're not giving this the coverage it deserves, because this is probably one of the biggest subjects affecting football right now, and society, as you say, in general. There's no grounds, there's no place for discrimination anywhere, and the arguments for people even trying to defend the actions such as free speech and all that, it just doesn't wash. We've obviously had teams not take the knee before games for different reasons, and one of those clubs, QPR, I believe, don't take the knee because they see it as an empty gesture, and whether it's whatever the gesture is, it's meant to continue keep awareness of a problem in society, a problem in football that has no place. And I think that I think the sad thing about this is it's even happening, coupled with it's the second round of fixtures where fans are allowed in the stadium, and this is what we're talking about. I think that's awful, and I think that's it's frustrating that that's making the news. This shouldn't even happen. We should be talking about fans in the stadiums. We should be talking about the inclusive nature of football. We should be talking about the developments in the women's game. We should be talking about the Rainbow Laces campaign. We should be talking about promoting all kinds of ethnic groups into football. And I think that to then be talking about this, it's just sad. It really is.
Yeah, I just want to say, because obviously we're recording this and you can see me, I have been looking at my laptop because it came through a couple of hours ago that QPR are actually going to take the knee in the game against Millwall midweek as well, because it is the right thing to do. in the exact words of Mark Warburton, the boss of QPR, and it will show solidarity with the cause after what happened at the weekend. So it's very important to highlight that as well. It happened at Colchester as well, and I know the Colchester chairman has offered season ticket refunds for people who don't want to respect people taking the knee as well, which is, it's a sad state of affairs that has to be. I don't know if you'll just quickly indulge me by allowing me to read the statement that Millwall released as well. Obviously,
no, absolutely.
It's very important to obviously say that Millwall have released this statement saying that Millwall Football Club was dismayed and saddened by events which marred Saturday's game. The club has worked tirelessly in recent months to prepare for the return of supporters, and what should have been a positive and exciting occasion was completely overshadowed, much to the immense disappointment and upset of those who have contributed to these efforts. The impact of such incidents is felt not just by the players and management, but by those who work throughout the club and its academy and community trust, where so many staff and volunteers continue passionate endeavours to enhance Millwall's reputation. They are also, they said as well that they are going to, there was a statement from the first team before this happened as well, to say that they will continue to do the taking the knee gesture until the start of the new year, when a new and comprehensive anti-discrimination strategy will be announced by the club. So obviously we'll wait and see what that entails. On the flip side of that as well, Derby County and Wayne Rooney's Derby County, of course, released a statement to say that we were made aware of the possibility of a planned disruptive response during the taking of the knee in support of the Black Lives Matter campaign. On behalf of Derby County, I want it to be clear to everyone associated with the club that represent all sectors of our community, regardless of colour, gender or sexuality. It is important we do not tolerate or accept the actions of the mindless few.
I think well put, very well put. I want to kind of, again, it was drawn to our attention because a friend of ours who is a Luton Town fan commented on Luton Town as nearly every club, I think every club has changed their badge on Facebook or Twitter, so it has the rainbow effect behind the club crest. And it drew my attention to it because he made a very eloquent comment, almost confronting the homophobic response again by a few. Again, I'm only commenting as it brought it to my attention, having seen the Luton crest, I then looked at other clubs that changed, and there's a common theme that there were comments under each of the change of profile pictures that were homophobic, and the friend of ours commented really eloquently and just put, no wonder there's no openly gay footballers currently playing. And I think he sums up, and we mentioned this very close to obviously the Millwall situation, because it's all about tolerance in society, and it's all around not being prejudiced in any way. And I think that this just shows how far we've still got to come to go, and that if we think that we're living in an inclusive society, we're not at the moment, and that there will be there needs to be continual work done by the FA, by clubs, by society in general, to make sure this, prejudice to any kind of to anyone is eradicated.
Yeah, I keep saying that. We've said it before in the podcast. It's just a sorry state of affairs that we're in the year 2020, and these things should be issues. They really shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be. And that's
shouldn't be. You're right. And we have. I went off on a proper rant last time. Unfortunately, I do think it involved Millwall as well. However, they're not by any means the sole. Every club has got, unfortunately, a vocal minority. It doesn't matter what club you are. It's unfortunate, and the only way to fight that is to drown those people out and to point them out, to show them up, to basically make a stand to say this is not right and we're not going to accept it. That's the only way to do it. Moving on to the next news article, and again, this wasn't done in any way to link. We're going to talk about Brexit. This is the news that from the 1st of January, the UK is obviously leaving the EU, and after what seems like forever, we're finally getting an end to Brexit. And the FA, obviously this affects how people apply their trades, it affects cross-border cooperation, and it's going to affect player recruitment. especially player recruitment at a young age. So the way the player recruitment is going to work is the football's governing body endorsement proposed, and it's been agreed by Parliament, that players will be able to come to England on a points-based system, and which will consist of senior and youth international appearances, quality of the selling club based on the league they are in and the league position and progression in continental competition, club appearances based on domestic league and continental competitive minutes. That was a hard word to say. Effectively, it also is going to slightly change the way clubs can recruit younger players, with the minimum age raising from 16 to 18 when they can sign a professional contract. When coming overseas, the previous minimum age was 16. A lot of European clubs are pleased with this because some, especially Spanish teams, you can't sign a professional contract at 18 anyway. So a lot of this doesn't hurt English clubs. It's actually going to put them on the same par as some of the EU nations. It's kind of one of the minor details that people just don't seem to understand when we talk about Brexit, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, reading the various reports and rumours and things that went into this before the announcement, I think this worked out the best it possibly could.
Oh, 100%.
If you read all of the different permutations that were considered and all the things that were going on, I think you look at certain players who play in this country that have made a massive impact for their clubs who probably wouldn't been able to do this under the new rules. On the flip side of that, the most pressing case I believe I read was N'Golo Kante.
Yep.
He wouldn't have been able to come to this country when he did if they were applying the new rules now, but obviously, as you've said, it protects.
Cesc Fabregas for Arsenal wouldn't have been able to come.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there are a lot of players who come across, and maybe it will help. It doesn't really help because obviously they can go from one foreign club to another foreign club, but maybe if England is the big allure that it is meant to be, maybe players staying in their home countries for that extra year or two will help their development, not only professionally but also mentally as well. Because I think you look at the case of was it John Obi Mikel at a very young age? He was initially going to go to Manchester United, then he had his head turned and went to Chelsea, and there were concerns about him at that stage as well. So hopefully it is the best it could have worked out, and we'll see how it impacts in the next year or two, maybe, because I know the rules as well have also changed, where players signed from overseas aged under 21 will be limited to 3 in this coming transfer window, and then is being increased to 6 per season.
Yep.
As well. So I suppose that can only help the development and encourage clubs to rely more on their academies as well, and there are clubs who do rely on bringing players through their academies and maybe selling them off to sustain themselves later on as they progress as well. So we'll see how it all works out. I mean, it can only be good for also for the development of the England national side as well, maybe. That's the thing we don't maybe factor in, and of the home nations national sides as well, not just England obviously, but be interesting to see, because those players will be getting more chances rather than relying on these unpolished or even polished gems who are coming in from abroad who have maybe matured that little bit sooner.
I think the bigger effect will be on the Premier League clubs that seem, especially Chelsea, that seem to hoard younger players. They pay them, even at 15, even at 16, 17, 18, they pay them probably more than they would get at any other club, so it makes them more attractive, loan them out. Obviously, Championship clubs do benefit from loan players. However, the Championship clubs do tend to loan a lot of the English younger players. You can kind of list them off. Reece James last year, Harvey Barnes, Brewster. The list goes on of younger talents. Whether that would continue, and Premier League clubs would continue because they wouldn't have as many younger players to loan out. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think it was the best solution. We're going to move on to another solution. This is the final news story. It's the Premier League and EFL agreeing a rescue package amounting to £250 million. The Premier League and English football have agreed a £250 rescue package to help ease the financial challenge faced by the EFL clubs as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. The EFL will be assessed in getting a £200 million loan for Championship clubs. A £50 million grant has also been agreed for Leagues 1 and 2. How that breaks down is the Premier League will pay £15 million to help the EFL secure a £50 million loan, which will then be lent to Championship clubs interest-free. The loan is capped at £8.33 million per club and must be repaid by June 2024. Yeah, we'll wait and see what happens there. £50 million rescue package for Leagues 1 and 2, split into two parts. £30 million will be paid. Will be divided by 48 clubs, and a grant based on missed gate receipts. God, that's hard to talk. League 1 clubs will receive a minimum payment of £375,000. League 2 clubs will receive a minimum payment of £250,000, and the remaining £15 million will be distributed using lost gates revenue calculation. A further £20 million monitored grant will be provided on a club-by-club basis and will be based on need. A joint Premier League and EFL panel will judge eligibility. The word loan worries me a little bit, but we will, given the background that I work in, and interest-frees are fine. What happens if they can't pay it back by the 2024? We've seen lots of clubs that have struggled to pay that money they owe. However, we'll worry about that in 4 years' time.
I mean, I didn't know if you've gone into the nitty-gritty of this, and I apologise if you have, because I was reading my notes at the same time as you were speaking. The loans to the Championship clubs will be restricted to £8.33 million per club.
That's what I said.
Okay. And as well, that is not open to clubs who are in breach or suspected breach of EFL regulations.
Which makes sense.
Okay. Any club in receipt of a loan or grant will be required to continue to maintain compliance with the EFL's financial regulations. So it'd be interesting to see if they apply for that and then manage to break the regulations or breach the regulations. I'm not saying that clubs do that purposely, of course, but we'll wait and see.
It happens. It's happened, and we've seen it happen, hasn't it?
Yeah, there seems to be a club or two every season who seem to go close to the wind when it comes to stuff like that. So we're waiting to see. Obviously, it's been much talked about and much maligned in certain corners as well. It's great that, as you say, it being a loan, but with 4 years to pay it back, hopefully that will give us enough time to see fans gradually building up and going back into the stadiums and getting that gate receipt through and having the club shops open again because of social distancing and being able to do things like that and being able to keep clubs afloat. I think it's a bigger thing for League 1 and League 2 clubs to have that money.
It'll keep them afloat. There'll be 10 league clubs. Every club will hopefully be able to see out the season now, whereas it wasn't going to happen before.
It was a big concern. We've talked about it. 10, 12 clubs may not have seen out the end of the season, and it's worrying, isn't it? It's very worrying. I'm sure there are clubs in the Championship who operate at the lower end, and maybe clubs who the owners are sort of suffering from the impact as well. You don't necessarily have to be a poor club to suffer from the effects, because if the money's not coming in, it could affect the bigger clubs. You know, they talk about Manchester United at stages in this as well, hitting them hard and things like that as well. And you think they're a club who are maybe too big to fail. I'm not saying they would fail, but just finding life hard. You think if they're finding it hard, just about the majority of the clubs in the country would find it hard as well. So glad it's finally sorted, because it's been a matter of debate for weeks and months now. I know the Parliament and the government were involved as well, because they were saying that various arts and things like that were getting help from the government, but they were saying but there's enough money in football to be able to sort that problem out without government intervention. So good for the Premier League to sort this out and help the EFL as well. How much of a difference it makes long term remains to be seen, but in the short term it's going to secure the stability of just about every club in the Football League, hopefully, so it can only be a good thing. Absolutely. Thank you all for watching, and that has been the news for this week. Smash us a like if you like the news. Watch out for, on Friday, our Birmingham episode is dropping, and that was a fantastic, fascinating episode to record. Leave us a comment down below if there's anything you think we should have covered, and we'll speak to you all next week. That's goodbye from me. That's goodbye from me. And we'll speak to you all next week. Goodbye. Bye.